This is the Public Diary. I used to think the night was supposed to be quiet. When I was younger, night meant the house will finally settle. The lights will go off, the sounds of the day will fade, and everyone will rest. But in my house, the night had its own language. It started with voices. Not loud at first, just the low kind of talking that slips through the walls and reaches your ears, even when you're pretending to sleep. I would lie there in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to the way my mother's voice tried to stay calm. And then his voice would rise, heavy, sharp, like the door slamming shut. That was the moment my stomach would tighten, because I already knew what would come next. The house will fall into a terrible silence, the kind that makes you feel like the air itself is holding its breath. And then I will hear it. A sudden tug, my mother's voice breaking. And before I could stop myself, I would already be out of bed, my small feet touching the cold floor as I run towards the living room. Daddy, stop! The word would leave my mouth before I even realized I was speaking. Daddy, stop! My words always sound so small in that room. So small compared to the sounds of anger filling the space. I will stand there, frozen, watching the two people who were supposed to be in my world suddenly become strangers. My father's face will be tight with something I don't understand. My mother will try to speak, but the words never seem to reach him. And every time I cried out, Daddy, stop. Daddy, stop. I hoped something inside him will remember that I was there. That I was watching. That I was his child. But the room never seemed to hear me. The strange thing about that moment, about all those moments, was that it stretched. They all stretched. A second feels like hours. And in those long seconds, 1,000 thoughts will run through my head. I will imagine myself growing bigger, stronger, old enough to step between them, old enough to push him away. Sometimes I'll clench my feet so tight, my fingers will ache. In my mind, I will run towards him, push him back, shout louder than he ever could imagine I could. But when I looked down at my hands, they were still hands of a child. Small, powerless. The truth will fall over me again like a heavy blanket. I can't save mommy. I'm just a child. I can't save mommy. The thought will repeat itself inside my head until the room finally grew quiet again. Eventually, my father would leave the room. The door will close somewhere in the house, and the silence that followed always felt worse than the noise. Because that was when my mother was seated there on the edge of the couch, breathing slowly, as if she was trying to gather the pieces of herself back together. Sometimes she would look at me and try to smile, because I never knew what to do with that smile. I never knew how to look at her, not because I didn't love her, but because something inside of me couldn't understand how someone I love so much could look so defeated. As a child, you think your parents are the strongest people in the world. That night after night taught me something different. It taught me that love can sometimes look like surrender. And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how someone could give another person that much power over their life. I remember lying awake one night after everything had gone quiet again, staring into the darkness, making a promise to myself. A promise that felt very big inside a very small body. One day I will grow up and no one will ever have that kind of power over me. No one. No one. Because I never want to sit in a room again and feel this helpless. I never want to watch love turn into fear. I never want to whisper the words, "Daddy, stop," and feel like the whole world has suddenly gone deaf. Because the truth is that the truth I never knew back then, the truth children learn slowly over time, is that moments like that do not disappear when the night ends. They never stop. They stay. They sit quietly in your memory, in the way you see love, in the way you see power, in the way you wonder whether homes are meant to feel safe, or if some children simply grow up learning how to survive inside them. And sometimes I still think about the little voice echoing in the room. "Daddy, stop." Over and over again, over and over again. A child's voice asking the world to become gentle. I can't get it off my mind. 35 years later, I still can't get it off my mind. I can still get it off my mind. Thank you for listening to this episode on The Public Diary. Every story you hear here began with someone who finally decided that silence was too heavy to carry alone. If you have a story you'd like to share, something you've lived through, witnessed, or learned from, you can send it to us. Your story can remain anonymous, and it might just become the next entry on The Public Diary. If this episode moved you, please do well to like, follow, and share to someone. They might just be grateful that you did. And remember, sometimes the stories we most are afraid to tell are the ones someone else desperately needs to hear. Until next time, this is The Public Diary.